Hi, this is Mr. Gideon. So now I want to talk about what aggregate supply is. And specifically for now, just focus in on short-run aggregate supply. Now, of course, this is one of three curves that are expected when you draw a picture that's comprehensive of an entire economy. Let's say the economy is Mexico's. So we would label it the Mexican economy. Price levels there, quantity of real GDP down here. We're talking about short-run aggregate supply whose curve slopes up and to the right. Long-run aggregate supply, as you know already, is a vertical curve, so we're just focusing on SRAS. What is it? SRAS is the supply of all goods and services produced for sale inside a country in the short run. So it's a short run time frame. What puts the short run in SRAS? Because it's for a period of time identified as a short run where certain issues prevail, where wages stick and menu prices stick and things are set up a little bit differently than they would be in the long run. And so I'm going to explain that here. Just like we've talked about before so many times, when you've got a curve, you do want to visualize the fact that this curve is a connect the dots of sorts. It's a collection of possible points we can be at, right? So why do these points have this direct relationship between price level and quantity? In other words, as price increases, why do we have quantity of real GDP supplied increase? And as price level decreases, why does the quantity of real GDP supplied decrease? Well, a couple of different reasons. One is the sticky wage explanation. Wages are sticky. If you've ever had a paid job, you know that you don't come in every day that you work and renegotiate what you're going to be paid that day. Wages are stuck in the short term until who knows how long, a month, 6 months, 2 years, people get raises, they get pay cuts, and the wages change. This definitely applies when you're talking about unions. Think about professional sports, where they have these collective bargaining agreements that go for 2 or 3 years, and at the end of that period, they renegotiate. But up until that time, while the contract's in place, the wage structure, or at least the rules that apply to that, are stuck. But it's the same way in the place of work. All right? So in the short term, since wages are sticky, what does this mean in the big picture with regards to supply? And remember, supply is focusing on suppliers, the producers of our GDP. Well, like it says here, if there's a decrease in the price level across the entire economy, then as prices decrease, there's actually an increase in the real wages of the people that work for these producers because wages are stuck for a while. So let's say that you're making $7 an hour and then prices decline. I know that's pretty unusual, but let's say we have a decline in prices, we have deflation. That's actually good news for you as a worker, right? Because your real income is going to increase. The power of the dollar that you have in your hand is going to become more powerful. You can buy more stuff, all right? So what happens from there? There's a decrease in real GDP because firms are going to cut back on these more expensive employees, at least the firms that know the difference between nominal and real, correct? If you ever run a company, that's something you want to be thinking about. If prices decline across an entire economy, that's not necessarily good news for every single person in that economy. There are winners and losers, just like there are winners and losers when we have inflation. So that's one of the explanations for why the curve is sloped upward. Now, of course, the opposite would be true, ceteris paribus. If we had an increase in the price level, then there would be a decrease in the real wages for the workers in all these companies because wages are stuck for a while. Now, after a while, they'll renegotiate their wages, particularly in the case of unions. But in the short term, because that's what we're focusing on, real wages are declining. The purchasing power of what you're getting paid as a worker is decreasing. So the people that run these companies increase the supply of real GDP. They say, wow, I can hire more workers because in relative terms, based on the prices across our economy, these people are becoming cheaper and cheaper. They'll hire more of these cheap laborers, and now, of course, they can produce more. What's another explanation for why the curve slopes upward? Sticky prices. Think in terms of menu costs. If you're running a company, or you can even think back to what it was like for you if you took business economics, if you had menus and you were going to use those menus on a continuing basis, like, well, let's say in a restaurant, you're not going to print up new menus every week. That would be way too expensive. You let your prices that you're going to be charging stick for a while, and then you adjust. So prices are also sticky. And if you think like a seller, if the price level across the entire economy starts to go up, well, some of these prices are going to lag due to menu costs. Just because all prices across the economy are going up doesn't mean every single business owner is going to be in tune with that. And even if they are, it doesn't mean they can just rip up their menus as soon as prices go up and down and reprint them, because that's expensive. So in the short term, suppliers cut back on their supplies. They're not going to change their prices in the short term. They're just going to cut back on their supplies. So what's an example of this? Restaurants cutting back on their food inventory until menus can get reprinted. Another explanation, producer misperceptions. Since consumers ultimately determine prices in the long run, consumer sovereignty, remember, if we have an increase in the price level, overestimation occurs by some of these suppliers of the increase in their individual relative price. And they increase real GDP that they're going to put out. But the reality is their prices are not rising as fast as other prices in the country. CPI is, how we measure this. But they mistakenly make more until they realize their mistake. So that's another thing that happens, right? As prices go up across the entire economy, one of the prices that might be going up is the price of, what you can sell in your company, and you go, wow, this is great news. I'm going to push out a lot more. The reality is you might be mistaken. You might have a misperception of how people are demanding more of your stuff because it's so cool. The reality is all prices are going up. Eventually, once you become wise, if that's the case, you'll correct your mistake. Finally, worker misperceptions. When worker wages fall, they mistakenly believe that their wages have fallen faster than the price level, so they work less. So a decrease in the price level leads to an overestimation of the decrease in your real wages by these workers, which leads to a decrease in the quantity of real GDP supplied, because workers quit to look for better jobs or they decrease their hours. So all of these are explanations in theory for why the curve slopes upward, because sticky wages, sticky prices, producers have misperceptions, workers have misperceptions. In the short run, over time, these things change. Wages become unstuck, and workers renegotiate with owners what they think they should get paid based on what's happening in the economy. Prices adjust, and new menus are printed. Producers start to realize that the price that they can get for their stuff, although it's going up, is perhaps just mirroring the increase in prices across the entire economy. Eventually, they make an adjustment. Same thing with workers who go, wow, I thought that things were really good, but it's not necessarily that they're as good as I thought they were, or vice versa. Right? When workers' wages fall, they believe that their wages have fallen faster than the price level, and they start looking around for new jobs, and maybe they didn't have to. But these are all explanations for the slope of the short-run aggregate supply curve. In the long run, all this stuff adjusts, as I said.